Thank you, and good morning to everybody. Greetings from Hamburg, Germany. It's a pleasure and an honor to be part of this important meeting, and I'd like to start by commending the team for setting this up, because I strongly believe that green hydrogen has the potential of being the next big thing for Africa and for European-African business cooperation. Although we are supposed to talk about Africa and indeed South Africa today, let me start by informing you about what's happening in Europe and in Germany as far as the energy system and hydrogen is concerned. People in Brussels on an EU level are busy preparing for something they call Fit for 55, which is nothing else than the plan to completely remove CO2 emissions from society, from the business system within the next about 35 years. Germany has just adopted a law that defines that the country wants to be entirely CO2 neutral by 2045. So that is less than 25 years. Now, today, Germany imports about two-thirds of its energy needs from abroad. And that is mainly in the form of coal, lignite, oil, natural gas, fossil fuels. Now, if all of this is to become green, a lot of people here have understood that it's impossible to replace all of that by renewable energy generation, power generation within the country. We would need to build 5 to 7 times what we have already in terms of wind or solar generation capacity, and there's just not going to be enough space, let alone the question of storage and peak demands. So everybody here is clear that it's not something we can do by ourselves, but where we need strong partners to help us in supplying new green forms of energy where oil, natural gas, etc. has been coming in the past. Now, the government has understood that this requires significant involvement and support for developing such new markets, and a lot of industry players are now clear that these imports, maybe it's not two-thirds, maybe it's going to be 50 or 40 or whatever percent in future, but these imports will need to be in form of products that are based on green hydrogen, although transformed into something else that's a bit easier to transport and to handle. So the government has put up an initial support program of 9 billion euros to support various technology developments as well as the development of a market for green hydrogen, and I'm going to inform you a bit in a bit more detail afterwards what that's actually going to mean. So, talking about a relatively small country in global terms such as Germany, there is going to be significant need for green hydrogen-based products from abroad, and obviously Europe and other parts of the world are going to add even more to that strong demand. So why is it that I'm saying green hydrogen has the potential of being the next big thing for Africa? Quite obviously, Africa, with its huge opportunities and potential, both in wind and solar power, has the potential of becoming one of the key suppliers of the world with this new form of energy. I believe that over the next maybe 10 years, the question will be decided what countries will be in the lead and will be replacing those countries that have so far supplied energy to the rest of the world in the form of oil and natural gas. So I'm quite sure in 10 years' time, we are going to see a new type of OPEC, maybe a green PEC consortium that will comprise of completely different countries than is the case today. But of course, also OPEC countries don't sleep. They have fully understood what the challenge is, and they're also working on green energy projects, on hydrogen projects in Saudi Arabia, in Oman, in Dubai, and the likes. And we see new non-oil producing countries in Africa that are quite far as well. You might have seen that Namibia is currently tendering for 2 lots where investors could come and do 2.5 gigawatts projects each reserved for the production of green hydrogen. So a lot is happening, and I believe South Africa has got a good basis and a good potential to be part of that game, but we need to move fast together. When speaking to industry players from Europe, they are all very sure that within a few years, off-takers of green products are going to pay a premium compared to conventional chemical products made from natural gas or oil. When we talk about ammonia, when we talk about methanol, there is going to be demand for green product that is not yet there for 2 reasons. One is the global development of increasing CO2 prices or taxes or whatever the regime is going to look like in individual countries, but products with a huge CO2 footprint are going to become more expensive, so that green products will be competitive very soon, although they are a bit more expensive today. Now, the second aspect on top of CO2 pricing is going to be the need and the requirement of customers, of end customers, to buy fully green products in future. So we will see that textiles that have been treated with chemicals will have a different price if they are treated on a CO2 neutral basis. We will see that cruise ships will be priced differently depending on whether they are running on conventional LNG, natural gas, including its CO2 portion, or whether they are run on so-called synthetic LNG, which is going to be CO2 neutral. And we are very sure there will be consumers that are ready to pay a premium for these green hydrogen-based products, whether it's in tourism, in classical B2C business, in consumables, but that goes down to car manufacturers that are planning to make all of the plants worldwide CO2 neutral. They will need green type of hydrogen-based energy products. They will need steel made from green or produced with energy supplies from green sources, because their end customers are going to ask for CO2 neutral products. So everybody's talking about green hydrogen. Something that is still to be discussed is what would be the best form of transforming this hydrogen into products that can be handled better, that can be transported more easily, whether we talk about methane, which is nothing else than synthetic, artificially generated natural gas, methanol, ammonia, etc., is something that is still going to be subject to various pilot plants. But this is known technology, and it's just a matter of scaling it to a size that you can produce enough products for export and to make supplies to world markets commercially doable. Here in Germany, we've had the first fueling of an LNG ship with completely green synthetic LNG just 2 weeks ago. And that is going to be what shipping lines, what logistics companies are going to ask for in future. Now, if we want to do these investments together, and if we want a significant share of this to be in Africa, we are talking about multi-billion-dollar projects. I think each of them is going to be in the range of more than $1 billion, maybe 2, 3, 5. That is what is being discussed in similar projects around the world. So it's not easy for an African economy and society to just do this by themselves. I believe We are going to talk about significant shares of international investment, but it's important for African societies to define, as with oil producing countries, as they did in the past, to define how foreign investors could come in, at what conditions, and what share of the cake governments and local investors want to take. But with all of these type of investments on a project finance basis, other than a competitive price, which I talked about, what we need is a very strong bankable off-taker that makes it possible for banks to come in to provide debt for such big projects over 10, 15, 20 years. Now, the German government has set up something that I find quite convincing, and that's what they call the H2 Global Foundation. That's a foundation that is provided with the guarantees and German government money in the range of more than €1 billion, and that is going to hand out 10 years off-take contracts for green hydrogen-based products, supported and guaranteed by the German government. That is going to make pilot projects these days bankable, and therefore financing should not be so much of an issue, because once you have a strong off-taker such as the German government that provided these guarantees, banks should be quite comfortable to participate in that type of hydrogen projects. Now, with this, we believe we can accelerate the development of a market, because investors would not need to care about the question whether they can find an off-taker for their product and at what price. They will just apply for an off-take contract with this government foundation, and they will quote a price that makes economic sense to their projects. The government is going to buy that product and will auction it off in yearly tranches, and therefore try to capture as much of the market price in Europe as possible. But they are well aware that there might be a gap that they need to bridge and subsidize for the first few years, so that this chicken and egg problem is their first market demand at a reasonable price, or do we first need generation capacity so that market demand can develop? That chicken and egg is going to be solved by this government initiative that I believe makes a lot of sense. So with some of these initiatives, we are going to see a market developing sooner than we believe, and I believe that something like this offtake foundation could help us in jointly developing a new market as soon as possible. And South Africa, I believe, has the potential, with its strong economy, its well-educated people, has the potential of becoming a partner of choice, a preferential partner of choice, also of Germany. You might have seen that the two governments have signed a hydrogen cooperation initiative already. So with this, let me close and take any questions that you might have when we come to the Q&A session. Thanks for having me, and I wish us all success and good luck in making this a joint success story. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Liebing. And I think firstly, you reminded us about the important H2 Global program. And I think, we have seen a lot of interest and projects being actually started in South Africa to produce green hydrogen for the export market. And activity is building momentum. Projects are being developed. But it's an important reminder to those project participants to take advantage of the H2 Global program, which will make your projects quite bankable in securing offtakes. So thanks for reminding.